Donna's World.
Hello everyone, welcome to Donna's World, and thank God it's Friday, and it's a very special Friday because it's the first Friday in 2025. Now, a couple of days ago, on New Year's Day, January the 1st, I spoke about resolutions which many of us make to improve ourselves or the world around us, and of course it's always about being better, becoming a better person or creating a better environment or whatever. But one thing I did not specifically mention was forgiveness. And that is, one of the sort of greatest New Year's resolutions any of us can make. That is to be ready to seek forgiveness from those we have hurt and to accept apologies and give forgiveness to those who have hurt us. Now, you never really know what's happening in anybody else's life, but I'd like to go back to a topic I've raised a few times in the past, which is Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Harry, the British prince who married the American actress, and they ran away from his royal family in the United Kingdom and moved to California. And they now have 2 children, and, to the best of everyone's knowledge, they are completely alienated from his family. And she is completely alienated from 99% of her family. In fact, as far as we can figure out, we outsiders can figure out, the only family member she's really close to is her mother. Now, it's very, very possible that, all those relatives in Meghan's life wronged her and that she is the innocent party. But in my experience, it never works like that. So even though we can't look behind closed doors and know what happens in other people's homes or existences, it's almost always the case that if we are at loggerheads with someone or ignoring someone, the fault is not entirely with them. It's usually a little bit with us as well, or even mostly, we might even be mostly to blame. So, Meghan hasn't spoken to her father for a long time. He has never met his grandchildren. He has never met Prince Harry, his son-in-law. And she's also, daggers drawn with her half-siblings, because she's the only child that her father and mother had together. But, her father had other children as well. And I totally sympathize with her in the sense that I think the girl, Samantha in particular, was really obnoxious. But again, I don't know what Meghan did to push Samantha into the bitchiness that we observed when Samantha was very vocal, a few years back, especially around the time of Harry and Meghan's wedding. But I do know that everything we've been told about her problem with her father is, in my opinion, a case of overkill, in the sense that, yes, I'm sure he did a couple of annoying things, he did things that were wrong, but from what I can see, he did not do anything that can excuse the man who is in his late 70s being kicked into touch by a daughter he once adored and spent all his, most of his disposable income on. Because Meghan was very expensively educated at private schools and all the rest of it. And, she herself has said in the past that she and her father had an excellent relationship. She adored him. He made her feel good. He's white. Her mother's black. Father made her feel really good about being mixed race. Father stood by her. Father gave her wise words of advice. Father loved her. So, the old man's made a couple of mistakes. You cut him off completely. I mean, that's like killing a fly with a huge sledgehammer, in my opinion, okay? Then there's Harry. I mean, I think, to be honest with you, Meghan seems very good at leaving people behind. I mean, the woman who was her chief bridesmaid at her wedding, Jessica Mulroney, the Canadian lady, They're no longer together. I didn't see any swarms of old school friends or old university friends at the wedding. It all seemed to be new people. I actually have a friend like that. Every year when she has her birthday party, there's a new set of people, except for one or two old timers who've been there all along. And the reason why there's a new set of people at her parties is because she argues and quarrels with everybody, almost everybody. And so, kind of as she casts friendship aside, temporarily or permanently, new people come in to fill those spaces. And, you know what? If you're not on great terms with most of the people around you, there's something wrong with you probably, unless you're in a really toxic place where everyone's an asshole, which I wouldn't say is the case with Meghan. Okay, so Meghan, perfect little Saint Meghan. Everyone around her is awful, and she's, doesn't seem too good at coping with relationships. Then there's Harry, and Harry's relationship with his royal family has famously broken down. They're not invited for Christmas to the royal palaces or castles. He's not on good terms with the brother he loved growing up. The sister-in-law, Princess of Wales, Kate, whom he used to describe as the sister he never had, they're not on speaking terms anymore. Harry and Meghan went public with criticizing his family while his grandfather, the Duke of Edinburgh, was dying in hospital. Probably made Queen Elizabeth, the late Queen Elizabeth's last few months, utterly miserable. And despite all this, they've been on TV, they've dissed his family, they've dissed her family, they've written books, they've gone to court with all sorts of people, of course, mostly the media. And maybe some of these media people deserve to be taken to court for libel or whatever. But when you're always in conflict, you have to ask yourself, why am I always the one who's got boxing gloves on? Why am I always the one who's ignoring people, sending people to Coventry, Unfortunately, the definition of a narcissist, well, I don't know what the clinical definition is, but a narcissist is someone who can only relate to themselves and their own feelings. And so they can't even see where they may have gone wrong, where they may have offended someone or overreacted or underreacted or whatever. I mean, I'd like to think that I'm very good at admitting when I'm wrong. I would like to think that I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm a deeply flawed human being, like most of us, and that, I am often or sometimes responsible for problems I have with other people, even in a country like Nigeria, where there are so many difficult people because it's a very corrupt country. There's a good side to Nigeria and there are lots of good people here. But there's a lot of sort of toxic stuff going on here. So it's very easy to not be on good terms with many people here because it's quite a difficult environment. But even here, I would say that some of the problems I've had are because of my fault rather than anyone else's, or at least it's 50-50 between me and the person I'm not on good terms with. So my resolution this year is to be more forgiving and to accept apologies from people who want to be forgiven by me. And I don't think vindictiveness is a good thing. In fact, vindictiveness is one of the most ignoble. It's the least noble, one of the least noble characteristics a human being can have. Always on the warpath, always wanting to pay people back and spite people and show them that they've wronged you, and of course you've never wronged anybody. Okay, so let's all think about that, and let me ask my viewers: have you ever hurt anyone deeply? Can you admit that you've hurt people deeply and that you have been in the wrong within the context of certain disagreements? And has anyone who's close to you, or even just, an acquaintance in the workplace or whatever, hurt you deeply? Love to know your stories, love to hear. One area that's a sort of a real can of worms is this whole thing about childhood. I mean, Philip Larkin, a British poet, said, parents, they F-U-C-K you up. They screw you up. That's what he basically said. And, a lot of the weaknesses we have as human beings do come from childhood trauma or mistakes that were made when we were being brought up. But, our parents are also victims of their own upbringings. So, you have to be forgiving where possible. I'm not saying you forgive a man who sexually assaulted you, who was your father. That's unforgivable in my opinion. But, there are a lot of lesser crimes within families, which are not actually crimes at all. They're just conflicts of opinion and tensions. And I think, as I said, Harry should go and beg his father, King Charles, for forgiveness. And maybe King Charles might have a few words of apology for him, I don't know. And Meghan should please go and see her father before he passes away. Go and see her father with her children, I mean, this is a basically good guy who gave you a good life that enabled you to be polished enough to relate to a prince of the British realm, right? So, if she hadn't had all those la-di-da advantages and privileges growing up, paid for by her dad, she probably would not have had the confidence or the savoir-faire to relate to an aristocrat or a prince. So now, in my family, there is actually a situation that is, well, I wouldn't call it similar, but I have two brothers. One is pretty ill, and I love him dearly, but he's too ill to get involved in my life. So that's why he wasn't on the Christmas Day broadcast I did with my sister and my son. But he's a great guy, and one day I'll tell you all about him, but he's not well, so he lives in a care home in the UK. But I have another brother whom I hardly ever mention nowadays, because I don't know, must be 20 years now. He hasn't spoken to me, he just cut me off, hardly ever speaks to my sister either, hasn't seen my son since my son was a baby or a toddler, didn't come to my dad's funeral, didn't come to my mum's funeral. Honestly, I would love to sit down with him and say, look, if I did anything to offend you, please accept my apologies. But he doesn't want to forgive. And he's certainly not in the frame of mind to say, well, okay, I forgive you, or to tell you what you've done wrong and to offer you forgiveness and maybe even to ask you for forgiveness because he has behaved appallingly, right? I'm sorry to say this, shouldn't be washing dirty linen in public, but I want everybody who's in bad situations within their families to understand that I know about this whole scenario about not getting on well with a sibling or a parent or whatever. I will seize this opportunity. I don't think he watches my YouTube channel, but bizarrely, we are friends on Facebook. So maybe he might catch this, and maybe hearing me talking about it will make him hate me even more. But in case the Spirit of God enters his soul, his heart, let me say, my brother's name is Dumle, which in our language means life is good. Dumle, if I have upset you in any way, I am really sorry. I'd love to hear what I've done wrong, or maybe just see you and hug you and put the past behind us without even going into too many details about why you've been so pissed off for so many years. Remember, when we were growing up, we were very, very close. We used to lie on a bed together and you used to curl up next to me and say you were lying in my shape. You're my kid brother. I miss you. It will be a tragedy. I mean, I'm 65 now. It will be a tragedy if I die without making peace with you, okay? And I want everybody else who has this kind of problem in their family to take that step. See what can be done. I mean, of course, you can't solve every problem. You cannot resolve every tension. You can't heal every injured or horrible human being. But you can try to work on yourself and try to make this year a more forgiving year and, a happier year within your family or your friendship group or whatever, okay? So that's all for today. Don't forget to tune in next Wednesday to catch Wellness Wednesday, which is my self-improvement show every Wednesday. By the way, I know I've asked you this before, but some of you are new, so you haven't seen this. Do you like my new wig? Bye.